What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench, guys, for a brand new season of Ben Builds with Joe. That's right, we are back with our good buddy Joe over at Mad Genius Productions, and we're going to be finally getting into building something Italian. This should actually round out the majority of nations for our buddy builds. And we're going to be working on this kit right here. This is the 1/48 scale Hasegawa MC205 Veltro. I'm building an early Series 1. I think Joe's got it later, Series 3. Mine has cartograph decals, so it's going to be hopefully a very nice build, but it does have that crazy smoke ring pattern camouflage. I'm not exactly thrilled about that. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump in here and take a look at the parts. Now this is a very typical Hasegawa kit. All the parts are shoved into one poly bag, which I'm not a huge fan of, but these parts look good. Everything looks clean and crisp. Haven't lost anything off the sprue, so that's good. I believe the 205 is an up-engined and slightly modified 202. So we actually have several sprues that share from the 202 to the 205. It actually says so here on the sprue label, but these are looking good. Very clean parts, finely recessed panel lines. Hasegawa's got some great details in there, so I'm excited to get cracking on this one for sure. Now my version is a Series 1. So we do not have the extended 20mm cannons. We actually have the machine guns in the wings instead, but that's cool, no problem there. We do have, again, some awesome looking details in the cockpit. The sidewalls are very nicely molded. I could add in a little extra wiring here and there though, to be honest. The cockpit floor is a bit simplified, but we do have those raised rudder pedals, and we do have some nice detail in there as well, so no harm, no foul. All the parts and pieces look good, from the radiators to the wings, finely recessed panel lines, of course, as Hasegawa tends to do these days. So yeah, very excited to go ahead and get started on this one. Now, even though we do share similar sprues to the Hasegawa 202, we do actually have a couple of extra ones for the 205. For example, right here we have the later Series 3 20mm cannons, which we're not going to be using on this particular build, but we do have them here in the kit, as well as a different cowling with these barrel type oil coolers. It's very prominent, very distinctive for the 205. So this is looking really good, very crisp. We have our wheels, propeller blades, all that good stuff. And our last sprue here has the lower portion of the wing, as well as our landing gears, our landing gear covers, and all the details there for the bay itself. These are very beautifully molded parts and pieces, so I think this is going to go together really, really well. There is one issue though. We do have a lot of open space there in the wheelbase, which if you look in the references, they have a lot of wires and things, so we might have to go ahead and spruce that up just a little bit and add in some extras, but we'll get to that a little bit later. For the clear parts, we're given 3 different sections. We have, of course, the gun sight, but we have our center section that actually folds open, and we have 2 different windscreens. I'm not sure which one is for my particular version, but we'll get to that eventually. They look clean, they look crisp, look clear, and I think they're going to be just fine. Then for the decals, these are supposed to be done by Cartograph. They look great, honestly, here on paper. Very thin, nicely printed. I don't have any usual issues with Hasegawa decals, so I think these are going to be just fine. But of course, as you notice, no smoke ring decals, so that's going to be up to me. That's going to be trouble. Moving on, we have the instruction manual, very typical Hasegawa layout, a little bit of info about the aircraft, a couple of finished model pictures. Then we open it up, and as you can see, very typical Hasegawa. We've got our paint callouts right down here, which are mostly Mr. Color. Above that, we've got our part trees, and then we open it up into our pamphlet style. We've got all of the different sub-assemblies, starting off with the cockpit. Beautiful amounts of detail here. Everything is nicely color-coded. Should have most of the paint I need. Then we move on down through the different sub-assemblies, arriving there with the wings, and this, of course, is the area we might have to do the most scratch building on for the undercarriage. There's a lot of missing wires and tubes down there. And then moving on down, we've got our finishing steps, finalizing everything up, getting everything closed or open if we so choose, and then we can get on to painting. Now for our different color schemes here, we're only given 2 options, and both of them are very similar. These are going to be where it gets a little bit interesting, because we have the typical desert camo pattern, but that includes those notorious smoke rings. How we're going to do those, I'm not quite yet sure. Freehanding them would be a nightmare, I'm assuming, but I might be able to make a stencil or something. I know Joe has offered some smoke ring decals, so I might take him up on that. I don't know for sure yet, but I want to see what I can do, because I'd hate to take something he might be able to use later on for like maybe a 202 or something. So I don't know quite what to do just yet, but as you can see, beautiful markings, very much quintessential Italian desert scheme. So yeah, I think we are good to move on. As you well know, I absolutely love references, one of my high points of building new model kits. And for this particular build, I do have a couple of hard copy books. Let's go ahead and check them out. The first one being from the Warpaint series. this actually covers both the 202 and the 205, so it's a bit more of an all-encompassing type reference. Now, I'm not going to be using a lot from the 202 side of things, but from the 205, we have a lot of nice information and some great pictures. We start out with the early developmental history of the 202. We've got some great color profiles, got other in-action pictures, close-ups, all the good stuff that we need. But for the 205s, you can see here, we do have some nice line drawings, and you notice a very distinct similarity between the 205 and the 202. And I'm pretty sure at least the Series 1 205 is basically just an up-engined 202. So we have a lot of similarities there. But moving on, we've got some great in-country photos, black and white, of course, yes, but also color profiles, which is super helpful. And I think there's going to be a great little history there of the 202 and 205, plus some awesome pictures. So it should be a perfect addition. 2 thumbs up for sure. And my next reference, of course, what build would not be complete without one of the walkarounds by Squadron Signal. I've got a ton of these books and they are super, super helpful. So let's go ahead and open up this one as well, and you can see what I'm talking about. We have a lot of very close-up detail shots of all sorts of areas for the 205. From the engine to the landing gears to the different weapon systems, cockpit, we've got everything we could possibly need right here in this book and in full color. Now, you always have to be a little bit careful about restored aircraft and their colors, but I think with this and the color callouts in the instructions, we should be okay. One of the big high points here of this series is getting in there and getting all the details. And as you can see, this is what I was talking about with the inside of the landing gear bays. We've got a ton of actuators and piping and support rods and all sorts of craziness. So this will be super helpful when we get into that area of the build. And then of course, moving on from there, we've got other color photos as well as just areas for like the tail wheel and the wings and the actuators and the radiators, all the different parts and pieces, and of course getting into that cockpit because I wanted to go ahead and maybe spice up the cockpit just a little bit with some wires or whatnot. I think this is going to come in handy for sure. So there you have it, our second reference, the 205 Veltro Walkaround Color Series by Squadron. Great addition to the reference stash. But there you go, guys. That's what we're going to be building. I'm going to be starting on this one probably next episode. We're going to get in there to the cockpit, start adding in some details, doing some painting. I know Joe has a very similar 205, a little different box art, and I believe his is, I think, a later series, whereas mine is the early series. But they're both Hasegawa, both 1/48 scale, and they're basically the same kit. Mine does not have those protruding 20mm cannons. I've got the smaller machine guns there in the wings, but I think overall, the rest of the aircraft should be pretty similar. Aside from the machine guns, I might have a little different aerial. That's about it, as far as I can tell. Though my ignorance on Italian aircraft is going to probably come out quite a bit during this build because I don't know too much about these beautiful machines. So it's going to be fun kind of learning about the aircraft, but also building something that is super iconic and really just an awesome looking plane. But until our next episode, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. I'm taking a bit of a break, I know, but I am back. I think the Mojo tanks are back filled up. So we'll go ahead and see you back here on the next episode where we'll crack into this thing and see what we can do. So until then, you know the drill. Go out there and get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Make sure to stop on by Joe's channel, check out his build. He's going to be doing some awesome things with that. And we'll see you back here on episode 2 for more modeling adventures. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.